Hare Krishna. Would like to welcome all of you all to our third and concluding day of the seminar, Decode the Labyrinth of Life. Are you all able to hear clearly? Would like to begin by offering our respects to Valmiki Muni. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Kujantam Rama Rameti Maduram Maduraksharam Aruya Kavita Shakam Vande Valmiki Kokilam Valmikir Munisimhasya Kavita Vanicharinaha Shunva Namakata Nadham Konayantin Paramgatim. So, quickly summarizing whatever we spoke till now. Yesterday and the day before, we discussed the stories connected to the birth of Lord Ram. We began by describing how the Ramayana was written, the stories connected to the writing of the Ramayana. And then we also spoke about Lava and Kush, the sons of Lord Ram, narrating the Ramayana to Lord Ram. And the whole story is a discussion about the greatness of Ayodhya, the completeness of Dasharath as a king. And then we spoke about how Dasharath, not having a son, was his incompleteness. And then he performed the Ashwamedha Yagya under the direction of Rishi Shringa. We saw the story of Rishi Shringa also. And then finally we saw how the Ashwamedha Yagya was a grand success. And then he performed the Putrakameshti Yagya. We saw how the demigods were being tortured by Ravan and his brothers and sister, and how the demigods were praying desperately for some help, and how Lord Vishnu comes and assures them of protection. And then finally we saw how the four sons of Dasharath were born, and they were given the names Ram, Lakshman, Bharat and Shatrughna. And then we saw some of the childhood pastimes of the brothers. And then we saw how Vishwamitra took Ram and Lakshman specifically to help him protect his sacrifice. And then we saw how Ram delivered Ahilya. So yesterday we stopped at this point of time. Today we will continue from here and we will discuss about the marriage of Lord Ram with Mother Sita. Through this whole story of the marriage of Lord Ram with Mother Sita, we will be learning a lot of lessons as far as handling our own relationships is concerned. And we will also learn many other lessons as far as other aspects of life is concerned. I will try my best, Krishna willing, to end a little early so that we have some time for question answers, if at all. And if that doesn't work, then I am always there here. You can catch me and we can discuss. So, Vishwamitra, Ram and Lakshman, they were at Siddhashram, and then from Siddhashram they went to Mithila. Yesterday I described a little bit about the beauty of Mithila city, at least the entrance of Mithila, about how the rivers were nothing but juices. And then Vishwamitra didn't really enter the city, but rather he took a detour and went to the hermitage of Gautam Rishi, where he delivered Ahilya, where Ram delivered Ahilya. After that, they come back to the entry of Mithila city. So as they were walking into the city of Mithila, the city itself was a resplendent place. It was shining like gold practically. And the most amazing part of the city, as Ram, Lakshman and Vishwamitra were entering into the city, they saw something very unique and interesting. They saw that on every house there were flags. And these flags, they were waving. And the flags almost look like hands of people. And the waving of the flags almost looked like the hands were welcoming Ram into the city. So practically every house, from top of every house, there were flags waving and welcoming Ram into the city of Mithila. The city was holding a rare jewel for many, many years. And the city was waiting for the most qualified person to be able to handle this jewel. The three, Ram, Lakshman and Vishwamitra, they were going around the city and doing some sightseeing. They definitely were not clicking photographs everywhere. They were standing to update on their Facebook accounts. But they were looking around. And while they were moving around, they happened to come to the most elite and the most beautiful section of the city. This was a palace that was the palace of the princess of that city, whose name was Sita. And people of Mithila were constantly talking about the beauty of Sita. In fact, Sita was so beautiful that when somebody would look at Sita, that person couldn't take his or eyes off her. Practically, they would just be mesmerized by the beauty of Mother Sita. And most people who saw her, they were regretting why they had eyes that were blinking. Because the moment the eye blinks, for that one moment, they would lose sight of Sita. The demigods were also equally eager to see the beauty of Mother Sita. And the demigods, they had eyes that could never blink. But even the demigods were complaining because they were feeling 2 eyes were not sufficient to see the beauty of Mother Sita. They were thinking, why didn't we have thousands of eyes? So practically, Mother Sita was the most attractive personality in the entire universe. As Ram, Lakshman and Vishwamitra were passing below that palace, suddenly Ram's attention went up. And on the balcony of the house, on a very high floor, Sita was just standing there. Now at this point of time, Ram didn't know it was Sita. He just saw a beautiful girl standing there. And exactly at the time that Ram saw Sita, at the same time Sita saw Ram. Their eyes met. This is the first time in this incarnation that both of them are looking at each other. And as soon as their eyes met, they kept looking at each other for a long period of time. And immediately both of them lost their heart. This was the first time in Sita's life she understood what real beauty was. She was mesmerized by the personality of Lord Ram. And this is the first time during this journey, Lord Ram didn't ask any question to Vishwamitra Muni. Otherwise, Ram was very inquisitive. He was always asking, what is this? What is this ashram? What is the story of this river? Asking on and on and on. First time, Ram had no question to ask. So, becoming speechless, it also happens with God. So, of course, Ram could not stand there for long because his guru was next to him. So, he turned back and he was walking away. But Sita kept staring at the form of Lord Ram as he was going away. She almost lost her consciousness. And the three, Ram, Lakshman and Vishwamitra, they left from that place and reached the center of the city. This was a huge peepal tree under which they were taking rest. By this time, Janaka, the father of Sita, he had come to know that Ram, Lakshman and Vishwamitra were there. Of course, he didn't know who Ram and Lakshman were, but he knew who Vishwamitra was. So immediately, Janaka, he ran to where Ram, Lakshman and Vishwamitra were staying. So Janaka came there with his guru, whose name was Satananda Rishi. So Satananda Rishi, he was an exalted personality. He was the guru of Janaka, the whole dynasty. Just like Vashishta was the guru of Ayodhya. So when Janaka came to Vishwamitra Muni, he requested Vishwamitra Muni to stay with them in Mithila for 12 days. Because in Mithila, they were celebrating a very auspicious yajna or sacrifice, and Janak wanted the presence of Vishwamitra in it so that it's a guaranteed success. Of course, at this point of time, Janak didn't know that Ram was Vishnu himself. The person for whom he was performing the sacrifice had come to his house, to his city, which itself indicated that the sacrifice was a success. So Vishwamitra, when he saw Janak looking at Ram and Lakshman with questioning eyes, Vishwamitra introduced Ram and Lakshman as sons of Dasharath. Immediately, Janak connected who these people were. Janak had visited Dasharath in Ayodhya during the Putra Kameshti Yajna. He was one of the guests, and he knew about Dasharath getting sons, but he didn't know who they were, he didn't know how they looked. And finally, he saw Ram and Lakshman, and he was impressed. Because these children, they were born from Yajna, they were products of the Yajna. So Vishwamitra, he then told Janak and Satananda Rishi about what Ram had done, Ram and Lakshman. He spoke about how Ram had killed Tataka. He spoke about how Ram had killed Subahu. He spoke about how Ram had thrown Marich away 800 miles away. He spoke about how Ram had protected the Yajna in Siddhashram. So now, as Vishwamitra was telling about all these features of Ram, all these, adventures of Ram and these victories of Ram, Satananda Rishi, who was standing next to Janaka, he was like hardly impressed. He was not even looking at Ram and Lakshman, he was looking here and there probably, But then, when Vishwamitra Muni, he said that Ram, before we entered into Mithila, he delivered Ahilya from being a stone. As soon as Vishwamitra said that, Satananda Rishi practically jumped up from his seat. He said, Ram has delivered Ahilya. How can that be possible? And then he was very joyous that, Ram had actually delivered Ahilya. And then he revealed that Satanand, he revealed to Vishwamitra and Ram and Lakshman that he was the son of Ahilya and Gautam Rishi. So now, can you imagine what is going on in Satananda Rishi's heart? To know that his mother has been a stone for so many years, and to know that somebody had finally been able to deliver his mother from that curse. And he also came to know that Gautam Rishi had come back and Ahilya and Gautam Rishi were staying together. So Satananda Rishi was impressed with Ram and Lakshman. Heroic acts may attract common person. Common people will be attracted by something heroic. People love heroism. When the movie industry talks about heroes doing something wonderful, it's always something that people are fascinated by. Sportsmen doing something Herculean, it's almost something that people love. And people don't even mind if heroes do something that is impossible also, In one of Rajinikanth's movies, he does something that is almost impossible. There's a villain running away from him, and the villain is on the other side of the wall, and the wall is too huge for him to jump. So what he does is, he throws a gun, and that gun has only one bullet. He throws the gun in the air, And he takes another gun and shoots the trigger of that gun. And the bullet goes and hits the villain and he dies. So when people see heroic things like this, people are impressed. People love such heroes. So here is Vishwamitra talking about the heroic deeds of Ram. He's telling Satananda Rishi and he's telling Janaka that Ram has done this, Ram has done that. Heroic deeds that practically no human being can do. Satananda Rishi is not impressed. So heroic acts may attract a common person, but acts of compassion and kindness attract the hearts of great souls. Great souls are not interested in small things, small acts of heroism, or even big acts of heroism. For them, the greatest act of heroism is when somebody does something compassionate. And therefore, for a great person, compassion is the most important quality that a human being should have. When Vishwamitra was glorifying Ram's compassion of delivering Ahilya, Satananda Rishi just observed what Ram was doing. Ram, hearing his own glorification, he had his head bent low. He was extremely humble about it. And that impressed Satananda Rishi even more. So, in today's age, when we talk about compassion, people understand it as compassion. They welcome passion in their life, The Gita, when it talks about compassion, it actually is telling us, come, that means decrease passion. So, the Gita tells us that we should not just decrease passion, but we should increase empathy. We should increase compassion. So therefore, there are two words. Veda means knowledge. And there's another word which is in Sanskrit and Hindi known as Vedana. Vedana means suffering. There are people in this world who understand the Vedas perfectly, but they cannot understand the Vedana of somebody else, the suffering that others go through. One time there was a small child, about 5-6-year-old boy. He had gone to a mall. He had a wallet in his pocket. He had gone to a mall alone. And it's a huge mall. He picked up a soft toy, huge soft toy. And he brought the soft toy to the counter to purchase it. And of course, there were many people standing in that line to pay up. One man at the back of this child, he knew that this boy cannot afford this soft toy. But he also realized that there is something wrong. He's come alone to this mall to buy a soft toy. So, the cashier, he asked the child to give the money. The child counted. There was a little short of money. So there was a man who was just behind the child, and he was quite a rich man. He just became very intrigued seeing the situation. And he just felt like asking the child, why does he need this soft toy? So the child, he answered, he said that my sister has gone to God. And before going, she wanted a soft toy, this particular soft toy. But we couldn't give it to her. Now I'm wanting to send it to her. So this rich man, he realized that something has gone wrong. Probably his sister has died. And he also realized that probably this child doesn't know what is the meaning of death. So therefore, he's thinking of sending the soft toys to his sister. So this man, he told this boy that, how are you going to send this soft toy to your sister? The boy said, in a few days, my mother also is going. So I'm going to send with her. So as soon as the rich man heard this, the man told this boy, can you give me a wallet? I'll just check. So he took the wallet, he put a little money in, and he told the child, you have counted wrongly. You have actual right amount of money. And the child pay for it. So the understanding is that our country, it may have Vedas. The Vedic culture is there. The Vedas are there. The scriptures are there. But if study of the Vedas doesn't lead to understanding of Vedana, that means what is going on in people's lives, and if the study of the Vedas makes us hard-hearted, what is the point in studying such Vedas? Heroism is good if heroism leads to compassion, leads to empathy. But heroism which leads to destruction, which leads to insensitivity, is bad. Therefore, when we find somebody doing something compassionate, it touches your heart. There was a small girl who came home from her school, and suddenly she started telling her mother, I want to shave my head. The mother couldn't understand suddenly where this idea came from. The girls kept insisting, I want to shave my head, I want to shave my head. The mother asked, why? And finally this girl, 6-year-old girl, she said, because my friend who is in my same class, he has cancer and he has lost all his hair. So all the children in this class make fun of him. So I want to give him company. So compassion is a quality that can touch great people's hearts. Satananda Rishi was not impressed by the heroism of Ram, but he was impressed with the compassion of Ram. So Satananda Rishi, in return, he tells Ram and Lakshman the entire story of Vishwamitra. The last series that we discussed, we saw this whole story of Vishwamitra. Then, at night, Ram, Lakshman and Vishwamitra came back to the place where they were staying, and they were lying down to go to sleep. As Ram was lying down, he was thinking about the girl in that window. Of course, at this point of time, Ram was thinking, am I committing a sin by thinking about somebody who may be married? So then, Ram heard a voice from within. He's God, he can hear anything. So Ram, he realized that not possible. If my mind has thought about somebody, that person has to be the person for me. Confidence in one's mind can be achieved if one's thoughts, words, and actions are in alignment with the higher principles. If our thoughts, words, and actions are not in alignment with the higher principles, don't have confidence in your mind. Your mind will trick you. So, a frivolous mind, it looks out for opportunities to drag us down and to make us compromise. And therefore, a frivolous mind has to be dealt with very carefully. In fact, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, would say, when you get up in the morning, as soon as you get up, you should beat your mind with a broom 100 times. And then beat your mind with a slipper 100 times. What does it mean? It's not that you sleep with a broom and a slipper next to you, It actually means that you have to deal with your mind extremely strictly. Otherwise, the mind is really going to take you for a ride. So, as Ram was thinking of Sita, even Sita was thinking of Ram. In fact, Sita was sleeping on a soft bed. For her, that bed almost felt like a bed of thorns. They passed the whole night like this. And the next morning, early in the morning, Vishwamitra took Ram and Lakshman along with him to the palace of Janaka. And As soon as they reached the palace of Janaka, Vishwamitra asked Janaka to show Ram and Lakshman the bow of Lord Shiva. That is the reason he got him there. So if he doesn't show him that, then, it's not right. So Janaka, he told him, I will definitely show you all, but before I show you all the bow, let me tell you about the bow. When you want to understand something or someone, before you understand that person by seeing the person, you should hear about the person or should hear the person. Many times when we go like this in Saffron to corporate organizations or to universities, people almost giggle. Some jokers have come, So I always start my talk by saying, please don't see us, hear us. There is a big gulf of difference between seeing and hearing. Because when you see external appearances, you can always mistake. A crow and a cuckoo looks exactly same when you look at them. But when a crow and a cuckoo opens their mouth, different sounds come out. So hearing is more important than seeing. So Janaka told Ram and Lakshman and Vishwamitra that I will show you all the bow, but before I show you all the bow, I will tell you all about the bow. Only then you will understand the glory of the bow. So then Janaka, he started telling the stories connected to the bow. He said, Vishwakarma, the celestial architect of the demigods, long back, he created 2 bows. These bows were huge, gigantic bows. And he gave one bow to Lord Shiva and he gave another bow to Lord Vishnu. So Lord Shiva used this particular bow to kill the Tripurasura demon. And then he also used this bow in many other occasions. In fact, when Lord Shiva had gone with Sati to the Daksha Yagya, Daksha was the father-in-law of Lord Shiva, and Sati was Daksha's daughter. So Daksha had arranged for the marriage of his another daughter, and he purposely did not invite Shiva and Sati. The reason being that he hated Lord Shiva. Father-in-law hating his son-in-law. So Lord Shiva, and the reason he hated Lord Shiva was because Daksha, he was one of the prominent Prajapatis, demigods in charge for procreation. He had such a position and so much wealth. He was extremely puffed up by his wealth and position. And he felt, Lord Shiva is a beggar. He doesn't have any wealth. And where will my daughter stay? There is not even a home. Lord Shiva doesn't even have a hut. So he used to abuse Lord Shiva like anything. So Lord Shiva, he knew how to deal with differences. One of the ways in which you deal with people who are totally envious against you is by avoiding them. So he kept avoiding Daksha, confronting with Daksha anytime. One day, when this marriage ceremony happened, Sati wanted to go there. Sati went and told Lord Shiva, let us go to the marriage. Can you see all these demigods are flying above us, going to the marriage? They're all decked very nicely. I also want to, decorate myself nicely. I want to attend my sister's marriage. Lord Shiva told her, please, let's not go there. We have not invited. It's not good to go to a place where you're not invited. Sati said, come on, why do I need an invitation for my own sister's marriage? I'm going. One of the ways in which you deal with differences, when there is somebody who just doesn't listen to what you say, has their own opinion, is let them learn by their experience what is right and what is wrong. So rather than getting into an argument with Sati, Lord Shiva said, okay, you go ahead. Sati went. Lord Shiva had to go with her. They were seated in the marriage ceremony, and Daksha made an entry. As soon as Daksha made an entry, he was an effulgent person, extremely beautiful person. And as soon as Daksha entered, the whole assembly, everybody got up. Except two people, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Everybody else got up. Daksha had no problem with Lord Brahma because he was his father. But Daksha did have a problem that Lord Shiva didn't get up. He started abusing Lord Shiva like anything. And that was the time Lord Shiva used this bow again to destroy practically everybody in the sacrifice. Of course, at that point of time, he did not destroy Daksha. That happened much later. So this bow of Lord Shiva was a very famous and celebrated bow. And the demigods, when they came to know that there were two bows, one belonged to Lord Vishnu and one belonged to Lord Shiva, they became a little curious. And their curiosity was, which bow is better? So they told Lord Brahma, my dear Brahma, please create a fight between Vishnu and Shiva. We want to know which bow is better. Brahmaji told them, see, don't take a risk of, meddling around with powerful people. You all will be in trouble. They said, no, we want to see. We want to see. They were like small children, adamant. The difference between big children and small children is only the size of the toys. The adamancy is exactly same. In fact, sometimes when you go bigger, the adamancy becomes even bigger. So the demigods were really adamant they wanted to see this fight. And the fight started. Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu didn't want to fight, but somehow they had to agree. And the fight started. And it was such a terrible fight that the entire universe was practically getting destroyed. And at some point of time, the fight went to such a ferocity that Lord Vishnu, he was absorbed in it. He emitted a loud battle cry. And the cry was so loud that all the demigods fainted practically. And then when they got up, they realized they made a big mess. And they went and begged both the lords to stop the fight. And they begged forgiveness for it. And Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu immediately stopped fighting. Too much curiosity to intervene in matters where you have neither authority nor control is a guaranteed way of bringing personal embarrassment and public disturbance. So here, the curiosity of the demigods could have resulted in a universal destruction. What is the story of Adam and Eve? The story of Adam and Eve is the story of curiosity. The snake only, triggered the curiosity of Adam and Eve. The snake told them, you know why God has told you not to eat that apple? Till that point of time, Adam and Eve never thought about that apple. And as soon as the snake said, you will become God if you eat that apple, and God doesn't want you to become God, immediately they jumped. Of course, from a Vedic perspective, it's the same thing. Envy is the root cause of us coming down to this material world. Envy is the root cause of why we experience dualities in the material world. And envy is nothing but curiosity. Destructive, extra curiosity about interfering into somebody else's life. Especially interfering in a place where you have no control nor any authority. Here is a small video that shows how curiosity and poking your nose in somebody else's affair can create havoc in somebody's life. So much for curiosity. Your intention may be good, but if you don't have the authority, don't interfere. So now the fight was over, and then after the whole thing, the demigods asked Lord Shiva to hand over his bow to them. And Lord Shiva immediately got pacified and he gave his bow to the demigods. The demigods eventually gave it to a king named Devavrata. And of course, Devavrata was the sixth descendant of from King Nimi, who was the founder of the Janaka's dynasty. And then eventually it came down from Devavrata to Janak. So Lord Vishnu, who had the other bow, he gave his bow to a sage named Richika Muni. And Richika Muni gave it to another sage whose name was Jamadagni. And Jamadagni gave it to his son whose name was Parashuram. So that is the story behind both the bows. After Janak told his whole story, and he told about the power of these bows, then he instructed his soldiers to go and get the bow. And then Ram, Lakshman and Vishwamitra, they were shocked that instead of one soldier walking and getting the bow, the entire army of Janak walked. Why would an army walk to get one bow? Practically 5,000 people marched to the building which was next, because that is the building in which the bow was housed. 5,000 extremely strong men started pushing a cart on which the bow was kept. And this cart was pulled ahead by 500 extremely strong bulls. 5,000 men and 500 bulls pulling one bow. So the place where the bow was kept for such a long time, that section of the earth felt as if a huge burden has been removed from it. It was having a constant backache, that particular section, because such a huge weight was there, And now that ache was being transferred from that place to another place. So finally, they somehow pulled it and got it to Janaka's courtroom, and the bow was lying there. And then they picked up that bow. Thousands of men picked up the bow together and placed it in another place so that people could observe. Every man who was involved in that project of lifting the bow, their backs were practically broken. When the people in the court of Janaka, they saw this bow, they started discussing among themselves. There was a lot of whispering and talks going on. This one person said, "This bow is Mount Meru. It's not a bow, it's a huge mountain." Another person said, "This bow is not a bow. It is the Mandara mountain which was used to churn the milk ocean. That mountain has become this bow." Another person said, "This bow is a rainbow. The rainbow has fallen down, it has become a bow." So everybody was speculating their own ways what this is, The bow was colorful. And one portion of the bow was covered with tiger skin. And another portion of the bow was covered with elephant skin. So it was an effulgent looking bow. And Janak and the entire Mithila would worship this bow every day. Nobody could use the bow. The only thing they could do is worship the bow. So most people in this world develop eagerness to possess something valuable, rather than having the ability to make whatever they have valuable. So if something you don't have, somebody else has, I want it. Even if you get it, do you know how to use it? Most people in this world are like this. Lord Shiva, when the churning of the milk ocean was happening, halahal, poison came out. And when the poison came out, Lord Shiva drank that poison and stored it in his neck. And because he drank the poison, he got a name, Nilakant. He was glorified for that particular activity. On the other hand, Rahu, one of the demons, after the churning of the milk ocean, when the nectar came out and Mohini Murti was distributing the nectar, this fellow went and sat in the queue. He disguised himself as a demigod and he sat in the queue. And he actually drank a little bit of the nectar. But after drinking the nectar, he lost his body. Mohini Murti just cut his neck off. Here, one personality drinking poison and he getting a new name, being glorified for drinking poison. Another personality drinking nectar, but no use. He lost his body. What is valuable is not so much about what that object is or what that thing is. It's about how you use that thing. Whether you have the ability to make a valueless thing valuable, and if you don't have the ability to make a valueless thing valuable, at least do you have the ability to use a valuable thing in a valuable way. Most people are experts in making a valuable thing useless. So here in Mithila, they couldn't use the bow. The only thing they could do was worship the bow, and the two in a very fearful way. Janaka was in extreme anxiety when he saw the bow. He realized that this is a bow that practically no one in the world has been able to lift till now. Janaka was a father who was in extreme amount of pain in his heart because he had placed a condition for his daughter's marriage. And the condition for his daughter's marriage was that anybody who can lift this bow can marry my daughter. Now, for so many years, so many people have been coming and trying to lift this bow. 5,000 people struggling to lift one bow. How can one human being come and lift that bow? So the people of Mithila, when they saw that bow that day, they started whispering among themselves. They started saying, our king is a fool. So many years nothing has happened. What a condition he is put. Does he want his daughter never to get married? So they were now accusing Janak. And today when Janak saw that bow, he himself started doubting himself. Did I do the right thing by, putting such a condition? But then when he looked at Ram, he had some hope. Then Janak started telling Ram, Lakshman and Vishwamitra about the failure of so many kings who have come in the past, tried to lift the bow. And every king who has failed has gone back with vengeance in the heart and with the feeling that Janak has put a condition that is impossible for anybody to fulfill. And he said, and they all were feeling that Janak is cheating us. And they all got together, all the kings who failed, all the kings who were feeling cheated, they all got together and started attacking Mithila. So from the day Janak declared till today, every day there were fights in Mithila over this bow, over the fact that nobody is able to lift this bow. So Janak kept telling, these stories to Ram and Vishwa and Lakshman. People become friends many times when they have a common agenda. This type of friendship is known as egocentric friendship, where the foundation of the relationship is based on ego. Two kings came together and they said, "मुझे भी उल्लू बनाया, तुम्हें भी उल्लू बनाया, चलो उसको मार देते हैं साथ में." This is friendship today. When the basis of any relationship is hollow, then as soon as that relationship demands any sacrifice, the building of relationship collapses. Because the foundation of a relationship cannot be based on ego, but it has to be based on the concept of sacrifice. So Janak, was he really a fool to have done such a thing to his daughter? Was he really a fool? Janak was asking himself this question. And then he remembered something many years back that had happened. When Sita was a small girl, she was playing with her friends one day in the palace. And as they were playing, somewhere they lost a ball which was made of flowers. It was a flower ball. The ball rolled below the bow. So Sita just ran there, picked up the bow with the left hand, removed the flower, and threw the bow back and ran away. The friends of Sita and the servants over there, all of them fainted when they saw that. There's another story which says that one day Sita was plucking flowers in the garden. And there was one particular set of flowers that was very high on a branch. So Sita ran, picked up this bow and pulled the branch down and took those flowers out. So Janak was justified in keeping such a condition. Just imagine if she gets married to a Luka, who doesn't have the kind of strength that she has, What will they do together, right? So therefore, Janak kept this condition, which was almost impossible for any ordinary person. But Janak could not tell this story to the world. Why? Because what will people think about Sita? They will start thinking that she's some kind of a demoness or something like that, So Janak had to keep the secret within his own hearts, but at the same time, he had to keep a condition that was impossible. Life, it often puts us in such tricky conditions, such tricky situations, where you cannot share your struggles and frustrations with others. So at such point of times, you have to look for some alternative way to find hope. So Janak found his hope through prayers, praying and waiting for the day when somebody will come who will be able to lift that bow. So just like Janak, all of us will go through such phases in our life where logically there is no solution, nor can we tell the world about our problem, because the problem is so embarrassing. So that is the time we need to learn to take shelter of prayers with hope. So Janak, he looked at Ram with hope, because he realized, this is my final try. Beyond this, he had completely lost his hope. And then he told Vishwamitra something very interesting. He told Vishwamitra that, my dear Vishwamitra, if Ram is able to lift this bow, then I'll give Sita's hand in marriage to him. If. Janaka, just look at the state of Janaka's mind. He is telling Vishwamitra, if Ram can lift this bow, I'll give Sita's hand in marriage to Ram. Which means he had no confidence that Ram will be able to lift it. When you constantly witness failures in your life, one often becomes a doubting Janak. So many years, so many people have failed to lift this bow. The most powerful warriors in the world have not been able to lift this bow. After witnessing failure after failure, Janak had started doubting everybody, including Lord Ram. What is the outcome? What is the antidote to such a doubting Janak? The antidote to such a doubting Janak is associating with a confident Ram. The citizens of Mithila were constantly passing negative comments, and the entire environment of Mithila had become filled with negativity. So practically everybody felt it is impossible. कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. अपना राजा मूर्ख है. उसको मालूम ही नहीं कुछ भी. So constantly, left, right, center, negativity was going on. And in the midst of all this negativity, Lord Ram came in as a gush of confidence. So life in this material world tends to be bitter. People in this material world tend to be bitter. Life is sandwiched between lamentation for the past and hankering for the future. You just don't seem to be having any hope in the present. So most people whom we love and most people whom we trust, they are the very ones who cause the greatest bitterness in our life. And even those people who do not want to add bitterness, they end up adding bitterness in our life just because every person, practically every human being is in the material world, has some kind of bitterness. Just like any twig on a neem tree is going to be bitter. You don't have to keep verifying. एक तो अच्छा वाला मिल जाएगा, नहीं मिलेगा. So like that, in the material world, every person has some amount of bitterness, which will come out at different times. One time, there was a man, another man came running to him. Sorry, there was a lady. Somebody came running to him and told her, आपके पति को सांप काटने के लिए आया है, सांप काट रहा है. That lady said, जहर भरने के लिए आया होगा. So, in this material world, practically everybody is filled with so much bitterness that words that come out of the mouth are naturally bitter. So you don't have to struggle to find bitter words. In fact, the struggle is always to find good words. In the story of Dhruva Maharaj, you find that the whole story starts by the bitter words of Suruchi. The mother of Dhruva spoke such bitter words to her stepson. And Dhruva was so hurt by the bitter words of Suruchi, his stepmother. And then that's when his mother told Dhruva, the only person that can help you deal with the bitterness of this world is the Supreme Lord. Go to him. And if you go to the Supreme Lord, the bitterness of this world you will not experience there. So that's exactly the solution in Janak's life. He is living in an environment of bitterness where every person in Mithila is completely in a bitter experiences. And here is Lord Ram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, come to add some sweetness in it. When you go to a mother, the mother adds sweetness in your life. The Supreme Lord, He has the heart of millions of mothers put together. And in addition to that, He also has the power to help. Many times, the mother may have sweetness in her heart, but no power to help. Dhruva's mother, she had sweetness, but she had no power to help him. Krishna, the Supreme Lord, He has both the unlimited amount of sweetness and also the power to help. So here, when Janaka was in this kind of consciousness and state of mind, he asked Vishwamitra to ask Ram to try lifting the bow. Now, the story takes a very interesting turn when Lord Ram asks Vishwamitra, "Can I see the bow?" It's very interesting. The way Ram behaves, the mood of Ram is almost so difficult to comprehend. How can somebody be so perfect? So he asks his guru, Vishwamitra, "Can I see the bow?" Vishwamitra tells him, "Yes, of course you can see." So Ram goes and takes blessings from Vishwamitra. And then he starts walking towards the bow. The walk of Ram is described by the Acharyas. It is explained when the citizens of Mithila and when Janak saw Ram walking, just by seeing him walk, they realized that this is the person who can do it. He was walking like a lion, Simha Gati. So his gait had the power of a lion. And then he was exhibiting Vyagra Gati. His gait had the rage of a tiger. And he was exhibiting Rishabha Gati. His walk had the pride of a bull. And his walk was exhibiting Gaja Gati. His walk was exhibiting the majesty of an elephant. And his walk was exhibiting Sarpa Gati, the speed of a snake. All that combined together in one person. So can you imagine how Ram was walking? We can't imagine. But just imagine the fortune of the people who actually saw it. They were mesmerized seeing the beauty of Lord Ram's walk. And for the first time in all these years, these kind of matches have happened so many times. So many times, 5,000 people getting the bow in. So many times, somebody walking and boasting that he can do it. So many times, failing and going back. So by this time, the citizens of Mithila, they were bored of this. Nothing exciting in this game. But first time, every person in Mithila, every person in that courtroom was convinced he's going to do it. Blessings that come from well-wishers, it comes out from every pore of our body in the form of confidence. So confidence of Ram is not always a solo undertaking. It's not that Ram just felt confidence just like that. Of course he was the supreme personality of Godhead, but as a human being, when he's exhibiting humanness, his confidence came from the blessings of his guru. And then Ram went next to the bow. He folded his hands and circumambulated the bow 3 times in reverence. And after that, he turned towards Vishwamitra and he asked him, "Can I touch it?" People were shocked. Generally, somebody who is confident is also arrogant. But here is a combination of somebody who is confident and respectful. Because till now, Ram had only asked Vishwamitra, "Can I see it?" And Vishwamitra had said, "Yes, for that." And now he's asking Vishwamitra, "Can I touch it?" Vishwamitra said, "Yes, for that." And after he touched it, Ram asked Vishwamitra, "Can I lift it?" Vishwamitra said, "Yes." So people who were looking at Ram, asking all these things, they were shocked. On one hand, there is great confidence. On another hand, there is great respect and great humility. So respect is the antiseptic that does not allow confidence to degenerate into arrogance. So Ram was not just having confidence, but he also was having respect. And because of that, he didn't become proud of his powers. Everyone in the courtroom was sitting at the edge of their seats, practically, waiting for something to happen. They didn't know what is going to happen, but they knew surely something is going to happen. Practically every person in that courtroom tried their best not to blink their eyes for even 1 second, because they knew Ram is so fast that he can do anything in that 1 second. So they were practically holding their eyes open. And right in front of everyone, Ram just picked up the bow like an elephant picks up a lotus flower. People were shocked seeing the speed at which and the ease at which Ram picked up that bow. And everyone in the audience, they were gasping and they were screaming. They were really shocked that one person lifted the bow so easily. Ram lifted the bow and placed it on the ground, erect. And then, with one of his toes, he held the bow in place. And then he picked up the string of the bow and he tied it. And while Ram was tying the string of the bow snapped in between. And the sound of the bow snapping, it was so thunderous that practically every person in that courtroom fell down from their seats unconscious, except Janak, Vishwamitra and Lakshman. Everybody else collapsed hearing the sound of that bow. And practically the sound of the bow breaking reverberated around the entire universe. So Janak, as soon as he saw that the bow was lifted and the bow was broken, he started jumping in happiness. He was euphoric because finally somebody had not just lifted the bow, but he had also broken the bow. And then he immediately asked Sita's friends to go and get Sita. So Sita's friends ran to where Sita was. And they found Sita in a very sad condition. Sita was sitting on her bed, extremely dejected, extremely sad. Why? Because from the previous evening, she has been constantly meditating on Ram. She has been constantly thinking about him. She's not slept the whole night, and she actually had become almost feverish. Such was her absorption in thinking about Lord Ram that she did not even hear the deafening sound. The whole universe heard it, but Sita didn't hear it. Sita, she represents all of us. And Ram represents changelessness. And this world represents something that is constantly changing. When one is absorbed in Ram, the changeless aspect of life, one is absorbed in the changeless aspect of life, one remains unaffected no matter how many changes happen in the external world. Sita personifies this. Can you imagine a sound that was as deafening as the entire universe could hear? Sita didn't hear it. All of us, what are we struggling with? When we go through disturbances in our life, we can only hear the sound of the disturbances in our mind. We cannot even hear positive words that people tell us to inspire us. Just imagine if we learn the art of being absorbed within, being absorbed in the Paramatma, being absorbed in the consciousness of Lord Ram, then how much ever external disturbances come, we don't have to look for some change to happen to pacify us. But rather, we will look for something internal to really help us get that strength. Sita now was in a dilemma. She knew that somebody had broken the bow, but she didn't know who it was. Her friends came and told her that somebody called Ram has broken the bow. Now she didn't know who Ram was, and she didn't know if Ram was the same person that she saw the previous day. There was no way to find out except going there. So her friends decorated her in the most gorgeous manner, the most amazing ornaments. And then finally, when she was ready, she came down with her friends. She was covered with a veil on her face. She was almost feeling like removing the veil and seeing who that person was. But she couldn't because of etiquettes. So she came down and she was standing in the courtroom. And she realized she had another way of finding out who that person was. If she only could see the lotus feet of the person. And when she saw the feet of Ram, immediately she recognized it's the same person. And then she was happy to place the garland around his neck. Now, just like in Sita's mind there was a battle going on, in Ram's mind also there was a battle going on. Ram was thinking, what have I done? Where did this girl come from? I only came to see the bow and I lifted the bow and broke the bow. But suddenly there's a girl coming over here to, seemingly marry me. So now, but he had another battle going on simultaneously. First of all, he didn't know whether it was the same girl. But as soon as Sita came down, that doubt was clarified. He knew it was the same girl. But now he had another problem. The other problem was, this was a fight between a son and a lover. Many times it happens in this world. Ram was thinking, if I agree to marry her, then I may be justifying the fact that I am connecting with somebody that I have given my heart to. But I am not justifying the fact that I am an obedient son, because I am not even consulting my father. My father has given me so much. I have not even had the opportunity to consult him. So he was thinking, what should I? Should I listen to the heart of a lover, or should I use the brain of a communicator? So Ram realized that he had many roles to play in this world. One of the prominent roles that Ram had to play was to set a trend for the future. He was supposed to show the world how a perfect person is supposed to behave. And if he does get married just listening to his heart, he realized that that's the message he would give. So Ram's life was etched on principles. Ram spoke up. He told Janak, my father, Dasharath, he sent me with Vishwamitra to protect his yajna, not to get married. And he said, I can't marry anybody till my father permits me. As soon as Janak heard that, Janak fainted. The one person who had finally lifted the bow and finally, was a suitable person to marry his daughter, that person is saying, I can't marry. Janak literally fainted because he felt unconscious. When he got up, he turned to Vishwamitra and he started asking Vishwamitra. He turned to Vishwamitra just like a mother who has a sick child turns to a doctor. Janak didn't know what to do. He looked at Vishwamitra for a solution. And Vishwamitra was extremely calm and cool. He told Janak that Ram didn't say, I'm not going to get married. He only said, I will not marry till Dasharath gives permission. We only have to get Dasharath's permission, that's it. So he told him, go ahead and send your best couriers to Dasharath and give him the message. I'm sure Dasharath won't refuse. So Janak was in a paradox in this particular situation. On one hand, the only person who could marry Sita was Ram, but that person said no. But for Vishwamitra, such a paradox didn't exist. In all our lives, we go through such confusing situations where the situation may be, we are almost have something, but again we don't have it, right? So in such situations, what do? How do we resolve paradoxes? Reconciling paradoxes, it requires prudence. It requires good intelligence. So Janaka, he was trying to solve a problem that had not even begun. What is the problem? Ram said, I cannot marry till my father permits. The problem would start only when Dasharath said no. We find such an episode happening in the life of Arjun. One time, Arjun, when he was in the midst of the battlefield, the 18 days of the war, Yudhishthir Maharaj was hurt one day very badly by Karna. And Yudhishthir Maharaj retreated and come back to the tent. He was recovering. Arjuna, in the meanwhile, he stopped his fight because he was in anxiety about safety of Yudhishthir. And he came running back to the camp. And when he entered the camp, he asked Yudhishthir, how are you? I hope everything is okay. Yudhishthir said, so have you killed Karna today? Arjun said, no, I was so worried about you that I came running here. So Yudhishthir was in an angry mood, naturally, because he was humiliated and he was really, going through pain. And in his frustration and anger, he just blurted out. He said, what is the use of your Gandiva bow? Throw it down. Useless. And as soon as Yudhishthir said that, Arjun got extremely angry. He removed his sword. He was going to go and kill Yudhishthir Maharaj. Krishna said, hey, wait a minute. What's happening here? You came over here to see if Yudhishthir is fine and you are going to kill him. Arjun said, what to do? I had taken a vow in my older days that whoever tells me to drop my Gandiva, I'll kill that person. Krishna said, whom did you ask before taking that vow? So anyway, he took that vow, so he had to do something. So Krishna told him that if you want to kill him, then there's an alternative in the scriptures. The scriptures say that if you give bad words to an elder, it's as good as killing him. Very interesting. So Arjun started abusing Yudhishthira Maharaj. He said, you are a good for nothing. Because of you, we are fighting over here. If you didn't have this weakness of gambling, we would have been free, and on and on and on. And as soon as he finished, Arjun took out his sword again And now he was going to kill himself. Krishna said, now what? Arjun said, after insulting my brother, how can I stay alive? Krishna said, I have a solution for that also. And he said, in the scriptures, if you glorify yourself, it is as good as committing suicide. So Krishna said, glorify yourself. And Arjuna started telling, I am Gandhi with Hare. I have defeated Indra. I have defeated Shiva. I have defeated this. I have defeated that. And then after all that, he became pacified. So basically, resolving paradoxes requires somebody who can help us see things clearly. So Janak had the fortune of having Vishwamitra along with him. But while Janak, Vishwamitra, Ram, all these people are having a conversation, Sita was having her own thoughts. Just imagine Sita's situation, She's standing with a garland in her hand. She's been decked out, dressed nicely, and she's like, she knows that this is the person whom she's going to get married on. She already has given her heart to her. Everything is perfectly fine. And just when she's going to put the garland, somebody says, no, I can't marry you. Naturally, a girl at that stage would feel very dejected. But in the case of Sita, she was happy. She was happy that Ram said he can't marry her without Dasharatha's permission. Because Sita had 3 conditions for anybody to become her husband. It's very interesting how the scriptures give so much of psychology, for us to understand. What does a girl need? What should a girl look for in a boy? Now, if you ask any girl of today, they have their list ready, and the list goes on and on and on. But most of the list that they would suggest will not have these 3 attributes. Except for these 3, everything else will be there, probably. Of course, a little bit here and there would be there. But just look at the clarity in Sita's mind. So, Ram's rejection of the proposal, the marriage proposal, made Sita realize Ram's true worth. And then she realized that the most ideal husband for me is Ram. So for Sita, a man should have 3 attributes for any woman to be able to allow her to give her life to him. The first attribute must be that he must be valiant, or he must have the ability to protect her. The second attribute is that he should be prudent, he should be intelligent, and have the ability to say the right things at the right time. And the third thing is that he should have self-control, or the ability to resist temptations and control emotions. So all the 3 Sita saw in this one person. His valiance, his power. Ram was valiant because he took up a challenge that practically everybody else had failed at. And even before that, before she saw him doing that Herculean task, she had already seen Ram's powerful personality the previous day. She knew what kind of a powerful person he was. The second thing, she knew that Ram was prudent, intelligent, and very articulate in speaking what he wants to speak. Because she heard him speaking to her father with so much respect, at the same time with so much clarity. And the third thing, she knew that Ram had self-control because he curbed his desire to marry her. Wars had been fought over the beauty of Mother Sita. People have gone crazy over her beauty. Demigods hoping that they have thousands of eyes. So Sita knew how beautiful she was. But Ram's denial, that was the most invaluable thing to her. Because she realized that for Ram, his principles are over his desires. So the mindset of a girl and a mindset of a boy are totally different. For a boy to be able to, when a man goes through problems in his life, generally the way he tries to solve his problem is by becoming silent. He thinks about his problems, tries to solve it on his own. So when he comes back from an office with lot of intense, challenges, he comes back and he's quiet. And the way a woman solves problems is by speaking about the problem, discussing the problem, analyzing the problem, solving the problem like that. And when she sees that her husband is come, exhausted, not speaking anything, she realizes that he's in a problem. So naturally, being wanting to help, she starts talking to him, trying to help him solve his problem. But that is not the style the man adopts. So when she starts talking to him about problems, trying to help solve the problem, the man thinks that she doubts him. She doubts his ability. She doubts his, efficacy in solving problems. And then he feels insecure, thinking that his wife doesn't have confidence in me. So the problem becomes bigger. So the problem in men is less communication, and the problem in women is too much communication. So here Sita saw that Ram had the ability to communicate clearly. That gave her a lot of confidence, because a woman doesn't need a husband who can just protect her, who can just, take care of her physical needs. But she also needs a person who can help her handle her emotional needs. And for that, she needs somebody who can talk properly. So Sita felt this is the right choice. So there are some principles of marriage, of relationships, that are extremely important to keep in mind when we handle relationships. This could be marriages, this could be friendship, this could be relationship between brothers and sisters, it could be any kind of relationship. But these are principles that are eternal and they always are true. And these are the principles that we can learn from the story of Ram and Sita getting married. So till the wedding, till this point of time, Ram was a student who was focusing on his studies and focusing on self-development. And so till now, his focus was me. This is a state what is known as healthy selfishness. That means you're developing yourself. So you need to be thinking about yourself only. But the moment a man gets married, the marriage of Sita with Ram, it indicates that he has gone beyond his needs. The focus is a shift from me to us. Today's world, whenever I hear problems between, husband and wives, between different people, one thing I observe very clearly, the language is his house, my house. His parents, my parents. His salary, my salary. His job, my job. The moment that language sets in any relationship, that begins the downfall of the relationship. When people come together, it's us, it's we, it's our. So the language has to naturally change. And the mindset has to naturally change. Because when people come together, they come together for the purpose of sharing positive and negative together. Charlie Chaplin, he would say this. He would say that the mirror is my best friend because when I cry, it never laughs. Student life is a life of guided competition. But married life is a life of happy cooperation. So, Records can be broken when students compete with each other, but hearts get broken when husband and wife compete with each other. So therefore, to avoid heartbreaks, one should stop competing and start cooperating. It's so difficult to stop competing in this world, right? One time a husband asked his wife, "Do you know what the meaning of wife?" And he said, "Wife means without information, fighting every time." And the wife said, "No, that's not the meaning of wife. The meaning of wife is with idiot forever." So when people compete with each other to outdo one another, there's no question of healthy relationship. Ram, the marriage of Sita and Ram, exemplifies two very important principles that sustain marriages, sustain relationships. The first principle is genuine love, and the second principle is effective communication. So Ram had genuine love with Mother Sita, but that didn't stop him from effectively communicating with his father. So basically, when we learn to have a combination of these two, then we can learn to have effective relationships. Don't just think from the heart, also use your head. Many people, it's very easy to feel, in relationships, it is very easy to think that, why to use the head so much? Relationship means heart. Or many people feel that why to use the heart so much? Relationship means logic. Both have to be used together. When two people come together, it's not just a man and woman coming together. It's two legacies coming together. When two families come together, it's not just a... So what is the meaning of the word kalyana? Kalyana actually means auspiciousness. If you notice in India, there are so many confluences of rivers, right? Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, so many. And whenever there is a confluence of two rivers, that confluence is considered to be very auspicious to have bath in, if you understand it, if you know it. So whenever you are in a confluence of two rivers, that confluence is auspicious. That means when two legacies come together, that coming together of two legacies is supposed to create auspiciousness. Therefore, marriages are called as kalyana. It's supposed to create auspiciousness. But unfortunately, most people feel marriage is two drops coming together, rather than thinking two rivers are coming together. So people are only thinking about me and she, rather than thinking about the whole family. Mind is not so much a problem in accommodating. Ego is the problem. The job of Kali in Kali Yuga, what is Kali's job? Kali's job is very simple. Kali doesn't create fights. Kali only inflates the ego. And as soon as the ego is inflated, fight automatically happens. So basically, when ego is there in a group of people, it leads to quarrel. And when ego is there on an individual level, it leads to hypocrisy. So to remove quarrel, the method that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught us is chanting the holy names of the Lord. And to remove hypocrisy, the method Lord Chaitanya has taught us is humility. Keep humility in the center. So therefore, what is the whole process? Why can't we accommodate one another? The reason we cannot accommodate one another is because each one has such big egos. And the ego just doesn't want to step down. Each one's ego is so big, just doesn't want to agree, just doesn't want to submit, just doesn't want to, change. A man told his wife that yesterday a very beautiful girl came in my dream. The wife said, "I'm sure she was alone, na?" He said, "Yes." because her husband was with me in my dream. So basically, the ego just is waiting for a chance to prove that I am better, I am superior, I am more knowledgeable, more advanced. The moment you prick that ego with the pin of Harinam and this verse that we always chant, Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarorapi Savishnunam, Amanina Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. You can just practice this. Be more humbler than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, offer all respects to others, and expect none in return. That is a perfect principle of living not just a devotee life, but also a happy married life. So, the messengers of Janak, they carry the message to Dasharath's kingdom. And as soon as they see Dasharath, they start talking about all the glorious activities of Ram. How he has killed so many demons and how he has done such heroic deeds. And then finally they tell him that he has broken the bow of Lord Shiva. And then they tell him that, as soon as he broke the bow of Lord Shiva, there was such a deafening noise. The whole universe heard it. Dasharath said, yeah, even I heard it. I thought it was a lightning. But now I know it is the glory of my own son. So he became really happy hearing the glory of Ram. And then finally, the messengers told Dasharath that, of course, when they told Dasharath that Ram and Lakshman had come to Mithila, they started the discussion by telling that accidentally Ram and Lakshman had come to Mithila with Vishwamitra Muni. Because the moment they talk about the marriage proposal, Dasharath might just conclude in haste that Vishwamitra had planned the whole thing, So they said accidentally they came, so that they didn't want Dasharath to have any conclusions of his own. So Dasharath, and then finally they told that the condition for somebody who lifts that bow is that they get Sita's hand in marriage. And as soon as Dasharath heard that, he looked at Vashishta. And one look at Vashishta, Dasharath realized that he can declare celebrations. And the whole city started celebrating. And every citizen in Ayodhya practically, they started packing up to go towards Mithila. So Dasharath was so excited that he was right ahead of the whole retinue. And more than anything else, as with every step that Dasharath was taking towards Mithila, he was becoming younger and younger and younger. He was so excited to hear this news. And the ministers and the citizens were carrying so many riches to give as gifts to Mithila. The entourage, this whole marriage party was so huge that when the first person reached Mithila, the last person was still in Ayodhya. That many people were, going in the procession. Practically everybody wanted to be there. It's better than all the World Cups and, all the cricket matches. Excitement is much higher here. So, the procession of the citizens of Ayodhya, when they came to Mithila, it almost seemed like an ocean, so many people. And after 4 days of traveling, they finally reached Mithila, and they all entered the Ganga, the river Ganga, to have a bath. So it was generally the river merges into the ocean. Here, the ocean of citizens of Mithila, of Ayodhya, were merging into the river. So Janaka, when he came to know that Dasharath has come, he came running outside the city to receive Dasharath. And they embraced each other for a long period of time. This was the coming together of the solar and the lunar dynasty. Dasharath was the head of the solar dynasty, and Janaka was the head of the lunar dynasty. The sun and the moon never meet. But here, the world witnessed the meeting of the sun and the moon. And Janak, he instructed all his messengers and his people that every guest who has come from Ayodhya has to be taken care as if a part of the family. And then Dasharath and Janak spoke a long time about the glories of Ram. And finally, Janak, he came to a particular part, which was like a hitch in the discussion. So, Janak was very a lot of embarrassment. He said this. He told Dasharath that, my dear friend, they were old friends. He said, my dear friend, I had a condition that for Ram to marry Sita, he has to lift that bow. And he fulfilled that condition. So now, you tell me, what is your condition? You also have the right to put conditions. So he said, what is the condition that you have for me to fulfill for this marriage to happen? Dasharath, he said, my dear friend, I feel like a receiver, like a beggar. And a beggar has no choices. Whatever the donor gives, the beggar accepts gratefully. So he said that I have no conditions because my relationship with you is beyond conditions. Unconditional love guarantees infinite satisfaction. When we put conditions, condition and satisfaction, they are inversely proportional to each other. The moment you put a condition in a relationship, if this, then that, that's it. The relationship is not a relationship, but it is a transaction. And transaction means contracts are needed. Transaction means witnesses are needed. And transaction means there has to be an arbitrary. If you don't follow, what will happen? So why do people in this world have differences? Because they have conditions. And the moment you have conditions in your relationships, there are bound to be differences. Here, Dasharath Maharaj is teaching us what is the meaning of developing great relationships. Developing great relationships means developing those relationships without the foundation of any condition, with the foundation of trust and love. If there is any other foundation other than trust and love in a relationship, that relationship will shake in the first storm. The next day, the court met. The most powerful people from the Solar and the Lunar dynasty were together. On behalf of the Solar dynasty, Vashishta, he started speaking about the glory of the dynasty. He started telling about how Ikshwaku was the originator of this dynasty. Then after that, Prithu, a great, who was the supreme personality of Godhead himself, he appeared. Then there was a king called Kakutsu. Then there was another king called Mandhata. There was another king called Muchukunda. There was another king called Shibi, Sagara, Dilipa. And finally, Raghu and Dasharath. And now, Lord Ram is the king, is going to be the king. Why do people talk about lineage so much? The scriptures, if you see, they're all filled with, he was the son of this, and he was the son of that, and he was the son of that. Sometimes you read the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam, you feel, itna waste kyun kar rahe samay? Shukadeva Goswami. Parikshit Maharaj is on the deathbed, and here he is telling name after name, name after name, name after name. Full chapters. कितना नाम याद रखने वाला है? Anyway, नाम याद नहीं रहने वाला है, तो बोलने की जरूरत क्या है? So many times in our modern understanding, we prefer to delete connections, and we prefer to keep it short. What to speak of talking about a surname and father's name and all that, So people don't even like to be called by their full name. They like to be called by their nickname. Cal, Pal, Tal, Roll, whatever it is, Why? The reason is because people don't see the power in connections. Here, why is Vashishta talking about connections just before this marriage? The reason is because there are expectations with these connections. Not just expectations, but there is a great amount of power associated with this connection. The natural expectation of a swan is that it will have a pure heart. If the swan associates with crows, the color of the body of the swan will be white, but its heart will be black. the kind of people you associate with, that kind of attitude you develop. The reason Vashishta is talking about his old lineage is because these are the kind of people that Ram has been associating with. These are the kind of value systems that he has been cultivated with. And naturally, this is the kind of personality that he will be. When Janak heard the connection of Ram's dynasty, he started speaking about his own dynasty. He told a story of the originator of his dynasty, whose name was King Nimi. So Nimi, once he had invited Vashishta to perform a yajna, a sacrifice. And Vashishta, somehow or the other, he got another invitation same time. But this invitation was in the heavenly planets. So Vashishta, he decided to go to the heaven because he thought Nimi is my disciple, so he can wait for some time. Chela hai, to usko rukna hi padega. So by the time Vashishta went over there and came back, Nimi had already hired somebody else and sacrifice was done. So Vashishta got so angry on Nimi that he cursed Nimi that you will die. And Nimi got so angry on Vashishta because he said, you are supposed to be my teacher, you are supposed to be my guru, you went on top to the heavens because you are getting little more money over there, I curse you that you also die. So both counter cursed each other and both died. But then Vashishta, he wanted to take another birth again. So he kept his Atma, his soul, in a pot. But Nimi, he was detached totally. He said, I'm not attached to my body and I don't need my body. Now I have come out of my body, I'll go back to the spiritual world. And he left. So when Nimi left, that point of time, the sages, when they realized that there is no king now, they churned the body of Nimi. And from the churning of the body of Nimi came out a person, a king, whose name was Mithi Janak. Ja means birth and Mithi means manthan, churning. So somebody who was born out of churning is known as Mithi Janak. So from that day onwards, everybody in the dynasty was called Janak only. But they had one title before that. So Mithi Janak was the one who founded Mithila city. So from that day, because Nimi, the founder of that city, founder of that dynasty, was such a detached person, he was not attached to his body at all. The body is called as Deha. The city of Mithila, it came to be known as Vaidehapur. Vaideha means somebody who is not interested in the body, who is beyond the bodily concept. So every citizen in Vaidehapur came to be exactly having the same quality as King Nimi. So practically nobody was on the bodily platform. Everybody was convinced that we are not the body, we are spirit soul and we are eternal servants of God. Sita had another name and her name is Vaidehi. And the reason her name is Vaidehi is because she has no bodily concept whatsoever. Her only connection is at the level of the Atma with Lord Ram as a Paramatma. And therefore, only somebody who is beyond the bodily level can marry Ram. Ordinary human beings cannot marry Ram. Why? Because Ram doesn't have a mortal body. Therefore, somebody like Sita, who is Vaidehi, who is beyond the bodily concept, only such a person can marry Lord Ram. So, Janak explained this whole story, and then he said, after Nimi, there were 6 other kings, and the 6th king was named as Devavrata Janak, and he was the one who got the Shiva Bho. And then 15 generations after Devavrata Janak was this particular Janak, whose name was Shiradwaja Janak, who became Sita's father. So basically, the body binds us, and when we understand that we are not the body, it frees us. So the citizens of Mithila, they were beyond the bodily concept, and therefore Ram decided to come there. Janak then narrated remembered the story of the birth of Mother Sita. One time, Janak had organized a sacrifice. This was one of the most amazing sacrifices ever performed. The sacrifice of Janak was for the welfare of the world. The word sacrifice means sharing what you have with others. Sharing what you have with those that don't have what you have. So if the purpose of any sacrifice was to accumulate things, it would not be called sacrifice. It would be called as gratifice. Grab. So the word sacrifice means give, share. So Janak had taken a vow during this sacrifice that one of the limbs of the sacrifice was that the king had to plow a field. So Janak was plowing the field, and he had taken a vow that whenever I plow the field and my plow gets stuck somewhere, wherever the plow gets stuck, I will give unlimited amount of charity to the Brahmanas. So the plow got stuck in a couple of places. And he kept giving. And finally, in one place, the plow got stuck permanently, just not moving. He gave so much, still the plow was not moving. Then finally, Janak asked his people to dig that place and find out what is there. And in that place, they found a golden box. Janak held that golden box in one hand, and he opened the golden box, and inside that was the most beautiful girl child he had ever seen in his life. Golden, effulgent, smiling. Janak, he realized that this is a gift to him from God, and he gratefully accepted this gift. Every individual is like Janak, trying to find a gift. And we're digging here and there, somehow or other, desperately trying to find our gifts. Sometime, at some point in our life, we find one box. But the problem is that not always the box is golden color. Many times the box is wooden. Many times the box is plastic. Many times the box is so dilapidated that we don't even have the inspiration to open the box and see what is there in it. Gifts of God need not come in the best of packages. It can come in the most simplest ways. When we accept what comes naturally to us without struggling, without over-endeavoring, without being greedy, those gifts are the ones that can really give us satisfaction. But when we over-endeavor to try to get a gift that naturally doesn't come, but we make it come artificially. Do you think Janak had dug that place and kept that gift already there? Match fixing, exactly when he plows, he'll come out and look natural? No. It just came naturally. And he accepted it gratefully. So, this girl was named as Sita because Sita means the tip of the plow. The one who was born at the tip of the plow is called as Sita. Sita also came to be known as Bhumi Suta because she was born from the earth. And she also came to be known as Vaidehi because she was born in an ancestry, in a dynasty which was where nobody was attached to the body. Janak, as he was narrating this and remembering this incident, he was looking at Sita again. The same Sita who had appeared from a box. Now, the same Sita is going back into another box, into somebody else's life, into somebody else's palace, into somebody else's kingdom. So Janak almost felt that Sita is disappearing back into that box again because she's going away from his life. What is the meaning of the word Kanyadan? The word Kanyadan means that when you give your daughter in charity to somebody else, you're actually not giving your daughter in charity, but rather the daughter is giving you charity of knowledge. Knowledge that detach yourself from me. I am no more yours. People in this world have great attachments to one another. And that attachment completely binds us and keeps us in such an ignorance about ourselves. Kanyadan means it's a time to detach. And that is the knowledge that a bride gives her father before going. And therefore, one of the rituals that is done in a Kanyadan, in a ceremony, the last ritual is the girl takes rice in her hand and throws it back, indicating that she is throwing back her attachments to her parents. She is throwing back all her connections with her parents. She is throwing back all the preconceived or the trained notions that she has come to her husband's house with. And now, the opinions are going to be different. The mindsets are going to be different. The natures are going to be different. The likes and dislikes are going to be different. She throws back all her previous likes and dislikes, all her previous opinions, all her previous attachments, and then she comes back, comes to a new house, totally accepting what the culture is available. The same thing happens when a person dies. If somebody has gone to a cemetery, the last thing that happens after the body is burnt is the son goes around with a pot in his hand and drops the pot behind, indicating that with the cracking of the pot is the breaking of the attachment. So basically, here, if you notice, Sita is born after a sacrifice. Ram is born after a sacrifice. Dasharath and Janak, they got what they want after they committed a great sacrifice, given what they liked. So when you give, you actually receive. In one word, life means sacrifice. So here are the most powerful kings who have sacrificed a lot, but when they have given, they always got. So when we give something, we always receive something back. Of course, in most people's lives, they may not receive only tangible things. There are intangible things one can receive, like satisfaction. So once the introductions were completed, Vishwamitra and Vashishta, they pulled each other and went a little aside. Now, Vishwamitra and Vashishta, they were enemies for a long period of time. If you have heard what we spoke the last time, they were bitter enemies, actually, almost trying to kill each other for so many years, practically. And suddenly, these two people, out of nowhere, they are talking secrets, So everybody was just focusing their attention on these two people. They went aside and they were talking. And after some discussion, they both came back to the assembly with a big smile on their faces. So now everybody was confused. What are they smiling about? And then they said that we have a suggestion that will increase your happiness 4 times. And then Janak and Dasharath, they wanted to know, what is the suggestion? So they said that since Ram is getting married to Sita, why don't you marry your second daughter, Urmila, to Bharat, to Lakshman? And Janak had another brother whose name was Kushadwaja. He said, Vishwamitra said, why don't we marry the daughters of Kushadwaja? He has 2 daughters, to Bharat and Shatrugna also. So then eventually everybody agreed immediately. Ram marrying Sita, Lakshman marrying Urmila, Bharat marrying Mandavi, and Shatrugna marrying Shrutakirti. And then the whole thing was sealed. So the question here is, how do two people who are tough, hate each other, stay together? So here, living together is about having good attitudes, not just having talents. Just like when 2 bricks, which are hard, have to live together, they need a soft cement in between. which can hold them. So similarly, when people who have strong egos need to live together, they need to have the cushioning of having Krishna consciousness in between them. Some higher purpose to be bonded together for. And that higher purpose takes care of their inflations and decreases. Many times, our bad attitude is because we focus on the negativity in people. There was one very famous cricketer, his name was Ricky Ponting, you must have heard of him. He was one of the most famous batsmen. He was asked once, how do you manage to drive the ball exactly where it should go? He gave a very interesting answer, which is very practical for life also. He said, when most people are batting and they are trying to analyze the field, they see fielders everywhere. And they know they should not hit the ball to the fielder. But when I analyze the field, I only see gaps. I don't see obstacles. It's just a little change in the attitude. So many times when we look at people, we look at them as if they have so many bad elements in them or so many negativities in them. And when we interact with them, that is what we face. That is what we come across. Because we have been constantly meditating on that aspect of them. But when we look at the positive aspects of them, we find there are so many which we can meditate on. So Vishwamitra and Vashishta, so far in their lives, they have been meditating on each other's negative aspect. Finally, they have found a common link, Lord Ram. And both of them now are thinking about this positive aspect which has kept them together. The marriage of Sita and Ram finally was taking place. The citizens of Ayodhya and the citizens of Mithila, they made their two eyes into cups and they were drinking the nectar of the beauty of Sita and Ram. And the eyes were battling which one to see. Should we see Sita or should we see Ram? And you would see, and one of the eyes would see Ram and one of the eyes would see Sita. And that eye would become eager to see Ram and the other eye would become eager to see. So they were getting so confused what they're supposed to do. And some of the citizens, they felt that Sita should actually have 1,000 eyes to be able to see Ram's beauty properly. And some people felt that Ram should have 1,000 eyes because he should see Sita's beauty properly. And then it is explained that Mother Sita, this was the first time in Sita's life that she was coming out in public practically. First time the world was seeing her. It is explained that the earth had never experienced her feet. She always walked in the palaces and she wore golden sandals. And the sun and the moon had never seen her face. This was the kind of delicate person that Mother Sita was. And she was so delicate that if the sun, one ray of the sun had to touch her face, that part would become red. So some people felt, seeing Sita's beauty, that Ram should not just have 1,000 eyes, but he should have 1,000 eyes added every second. Because Sita's beauty is just increasing moment by moment. One of the names of the Lord is Aparyamrita. Aparyamrita means somebody whose beauty ever increases. People of today's world cannot have this definition of themselves because their beauty decreases with time. Therefore, we need to capture ourselves in photographs so that at some point in time we can see, "Main aise tha." Because you can never hold that beauty. It decreases. So people need to desperately keep a memory of their own beauty. But Krishna's beauty, Ram's beauty, increases with time. Therefore, if you look at deities that have been worshipped very nicely, over a period of time, the beauty of the deities only increases. Finally, the moment had come when Sita and Ram were going to get married. Thus, at this point of time, Janak comes ahead and takes the hand of Sita and places it over the hand of Ram. Generally in marriages, the girl's hand is placed under the hand of the boy. But in this particular marriage, the hand of Sita was placed over the hand of Ram. And Janak spoke to Ram. Ram represents the Supreme Lord, and Sita represents the energy of the Lord, the Eternal Mother. For us, more important than the father is the mother, because Ram represents law and Sita represents love. So, if only law had to be there, there was no hope. There is no hope for a spiritual aspirant. But because love is also there, there is great hope. In spite of people who are as sinful as us, we have hope because there is a softness of Mother Sita in our lives. So Janak, through this one act of placing Sita's hand over Ram's hand, he indicated many things. One thing is that the mother has a greater say over the father. And the second thing here is that in a family, the role of a woman is more important than the role of a man. To the world, the male may seem to be powerful, but his strength comes because he receives warmth, love, and affection and encouragement from a mother at home. And because he has a mother and a wife at home to provide that love, warmth, and affection, he can go out and be powerful. So Janak, by placing Sita's hand over Ram's hand, indicated that Sita will always be there by his side, whatever happens. And then Janak told three things to Ram, which are extremely important. The first thing he told Ram is that Sita is Ayonija. That means she is not born from a normal parent. So is Ram. And then he told Ram that this is your Sita. Now, Sita is standing over there only for such a long time, and Ram was standing there only for such a long time. So why does Janak have to see this is your Sita? It's common sense, right? But there are two reasons why Janak said this is your Sita. The first reason is that till now, Ram had never looked at anybody because he always felt that he is so beautiful. So Janak said, you have met your match today. This is Sita. She is more beautiful. So Janak is telling Ram, now after seeing Sita, you don't have to look anywhere else. And the second reason Janak said that is because Janak was aware that Sita's beauty had enamored Ram so much that he was seeing Sita everywhere. So he didn't want Ram to garland the wrong person, thinking that is Sita. So he said, this is Sita. And then he told Ram that Sita is Dharmacharini. Dharmacharini means she will quietly follow you when you are right. But the moment you are wrong, she will correct you. And there are, of course, we see in the Ramayana, so many instances where Mother Sita actually corrects Ram when he is wrong. And then Janak tells that Sita will be like your shadow. Shadow is located at the feet of a person. In the morning, when one faces the sun, the shadow falls behind. And towards the end of the day, the shadow comes ahead. Which means, he is telling Ram that Sita will be like a shadow means, when you are going through happy times in your life, she will follow you, she will be behind you. But when you are going through down times in your life, she will be ahead of you and she will lead you. So when Ram heard all this from his father-in-law, Ram took a vow. He took a vow that he will follow this Eka Patni Vrata. All his life will never ever think of any other person other than Sita. The women in Ayodhya, they were extremely happy when they heard this, because the previous king had 353 wives. So many men in Ayodhya would marry multiple times because king did it, so we can do it. So the women were happy thinking that now we'll be saved from co-wives. because the king is, taken Ekapatni Vrata. And then Ram garlanded Mother Sita, and Sita was going to garland Ram. Ram decided to play a trick. He didn't bend down, he just stood like that only. And Ram was much taller than Sita. So Sita was not able to reach her. So Ram was smiling, and having fun. And Sita was extremely embarrassed. Lakshman, he came running to rescue. Lakshman came and touched the feet of Ram. And as soon as Lakshman touched the feet of Ram, Ram bent down to pick him up. And in that one moment, Sita put the garland on Ram. And practically the whole Ayodhya and Mithila citizens, they started laughing. So with the marriage of Sita and Ram and the three other brothers with the sisters, Vishwamitra had completed his role. Vishwamitra was here and during this whole episode only to see that Sita and Ram are married together. So Sita represents a living entity, a jiva. Ram represents God. And Vishwamitra represents the guru who connects the living entity with God. So the lesson that we learned from this whole episode of Sita and Ram getting married is that relationships are meant to help each other complement rather than compete. So basically, one has to understand that when two people are relating to one another, there is a strong attitude that has to be in common. And that attitude, unless it matches, there will be conflicts, there will be fights, there will be disruptions. I'll end this with a nice story so that you can carry this back home. One time there was a village in which adjacent the outskirts of the village was a big forest. And in that forest there was a powerful demon. And this demon was so cruel that whoever would go to him, the villagers, they would get killed. Many villagers tried to fight with him, and each and every one of them got killed. One villager went with a sword to fight against this demon. And he took his sword up to slash the demon. The demon caught his sword and cut him into two. Another villager went with a big mace to smash the demon. The demon took out a mace which was double time in size and smashed this man. Another man took fire to light fire to the demon. But the demon blew fire on him and he came running back, burnt practically. So the villagers were extremely in anxiety that how do you handle such a demon? It was so cruel. One small boy, he said, don't worry, I can take care of him. Now the villagers were shocked that so many people, such powerful people couldn't do it and such a tiny boy is going to do it. And he walked into the forest absolutely fearlessly. And suddenly, the demon came in front of him. And, the demon was snarling at him and really looking at him with angry eyes. The villagers were behind him, but they didn't have the guts to go ahead. The boy went right up to the demon and he opened his hands. And in his hands, he had 2 apples. The demon took the 2 apples and put it in his mouth. And he gave back 2 big apples to the boy. The boy, he held out a cup of water to the demon. The demon drank the cup of water and he gave back 2 gold pots filled with juices. The boy smiled and the demon smiled even more. And that's when the villagers realized this demon was not the problem. The problem was the way we were dealing with him. The demon would do exactly the same thing that people would do to him. In relationships, this is how things work. If you feel that people are hurting you, insulting you, troubling you, try to think about what you are doing to them. Maybe the way you look at them makes them look at you in a certain way. Maybe the words you say to them make them say certain words to you. So in this world, nobody is imperfect and nobody is perfect. Everybody is work in progress. And as long as we are happy to be progressing, relationships will progress. But the moment we decide, this person, nothing can be done, that's when the roadblocks happen. I'll just quickly summarize everything I spoke. We started by talking about the concept of Sita, and we spoke about how Vashishta and the heroic acts of Ram and Lakshman, Vishwamitra talking about it. And finally, when Vishwamitra speaks about the compassion of Ram, Sadanand becomes happy. Then we spoke about the clash between Vishnu and Shiva, and we spoke about how curiosity kills. Then we spoke about the bow and how one should learn to value things rather than just, not understand the importance of things. Then we spoke about Janak's anxiety, the if. That means he doubted the ability of Ram. Then we spoke about the bow, Ram lifting the bow but not marrying Sita, how to resolve paradoxes. Then we spoke about Sita's thoughts on the principles of marriage, how Sita was very happy that Ram didn't marry because she had 3 principles that Ram satisfied. Then we spoke about the party of Dasharath coming to Mithila, and how Dasharath had unconditional love without any conditions. And then we spoke about Sita's ancestors, Nimi, who was known as Vaideha, beyond the bodily concept. And then we spoke about the birth of Sita, the stories behind it, and how Janak sacrificed because he gave, he received. And then we spoke about how the 2 enemies, Vishwamitra and Vashishta, they were chatting, and the spirit of cooperation is because of 2 bricks being held by cement, which is the Supreme Lord. And then we spoke about the beauty of Ram and Sita, how the people of Ayodhya and Mithila were drinking the beauty of Ram and Sita. Krishna's Aparyamrita, whose beauty ever increases. And then finally we spoke about the marriage of Ram and Sita and the concept of how marriage means complement and not compete. Hare Krishna. We are very grateful to all of you all for taking out your valuable times. For 3 days continuously to be here. I almost saw all of you all, almost 90% of you all here every day, sharp at 7 practically. It's quite amazing. Personally, I'm very grateful to have such an attentive and enthusiastic audience. Sometimes I would say I'll stop at 9. Today I said I'll stop at 8:45. 9:20 I'm still going on. Very grateful to you all for your patience. And all of you all, I'm sure you would have received notes of the 3 days. These are just brief summary of whatever I spoke in the last 3 days. In addition to that, I'm sure that you all would have got some feedback forms. These feedback forms will help us connect with you all and also help us improve the quality of these seminars more. With this today's presentation, we have completed to a great extent book number 1, the first book, Rise of the Sun Prince from Ramayana, the Game of Life. This is the first book. There are 6 more to come. So we are planning to do similar seminars for every book over a period of maybe once in 6 months or 4 months, whatever, according to time. The second book is scheduled to be out during the Dashera time. So once the book is out, we will probably do a seminar in either November or December. We will let you all know much in advance. And if there is anything else that you would like to let us know or some thoughts that you all have, please write it down in the feedback forms. We will make sure, I will make sure personally that I go through every form, and in case somebody needs some clarification, we'll definitely come back to all of you all. And if there is anything that you feel could help us actually make the awareness of this concept better, that also is most welcome. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.